Hello and welcome back to the channel and back with more GAA coverage. I'm joined again by Conor McKenna, and this week we're going to start off with some coverage of the Hurling Championship. So there's 9 games across all the different competitions this weekend. So we will start off with a big game in Leinster, the final of the Leinster Hurling Championship. Obviously, a Leinster team and a Connacht team, Kilkenny and Galway. Two big hitters, two teams that will obviously look at this game and nice to get silverware, but they'll probably be looking a bit further down the line as well and looking to try and win the McCarthy in a couple of weeks' time. So, Kilkenny versus Galway, Saturday 6:15. What's your thoughts on it, Conor?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Gerry. It should be a very, very good game. I heard it, and I think that the fact it's not knockout, okay, it might take something away from it, but I think that both Galway and Kilkenny will be going full throttle. Well, I put it this way: Brian Cody certainly won't be thinking that it's not do or die. So Kilkenny won't be going into it without giving it their absolute full commitment and want to win. And then Galway, Shane O'Neill is his first year in charge. He's a bit like that too as a manager. He wouldn't be taking these things for granted. They'd really, really like to get a Leinster title under his belt in his first year. So absolutely, this game is going to be, I think out of the two provincial finals, this will be by far the better game. I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think Galway have absolutely serious firepower in the ranks. They're after winning 3 All-Ireland minor titles in a row, and I don't think that can be taken away from them. I think the people are probably a bit slow to give them credit for that. Like Kerry did the same in the football a few years ago, and they were kind of saying how Kerry had an absolutely huge abundance of talent coming through. So I think Galway are coming from a very high base with a very, very good underage crop of players coming through as well. So I think Galway are certainly the team to beat. But having said that, Gerry, you're right off Kilkenny at your peril. I think many people have learned that in recent past. I think that after the Wexford game last year, people would have expected Cork to beat them in the All-Ireland quarter-final. They absolutely steamrolled Cork on the day in the second half, and then they bet Limerick as well, which was a massive shock. So Kilkenny are one of those teams, Gerry, that while they mightn't necessarily be good enough to win an All-Ireland every year, they'll always be good enough to beat any team on their day. So in a one-stop game, Kilkenny always have a real chance. And to be fair as well, like if you look at the likes of TJ Reid, Colin Fennelly, Richie Hogan and these fellas, they're some of the best hurlers in Ireland. So Kilkenny do possess an array of serious hurlers in the ranks. But Galway were unlucky last year not to get through in the Leinster. They got 5 points out of 8 and still managed to come fourth on scoring difference. It was a very, very unfortunate set of circumstances which saw Galway eliminated. So I think Joe Canning was absent last year. Canning is back this year. He was very, very good against Wexford. They have other players around. Conor Whelan's playing great hurling as well, and a few more lads as well. So I think I'm just going to go with Galway, Gerry, to edge this game at the weekend. I think that they won a Leinster in 2017, won a Leinster in 2018. They bet Kilkenny in the final after replay. Kilkenny haven't won a Leinster title in 4 years. That's a long, long time for Kilkenny, because I suppose me and you can remember a time when Kilkenny were winning Leinster titles every year, and it wasn't even a question about it. Like it was like Dublin probably are in Leinster football at the moment, but I suppose moving Galway into the province has I think two or three things happened to stop Kilkenny's dominance in Leinster as such. Well, it was 14 maybe. Well, I suppose one thing was Galway moving into an Antrim to an extent, but Galway have been more the serious contenders. Dublin improved an awful lot. Wexford improved an awful lot. And the fourth thing, I suppose, is that Kilkenny maybe aren't as strong as they were back then when they were winning All-Ireland nearly every year. So I suppose the combination of all those factors means that the Leinster Championship, I actually think the Leinster Championship in hurling doesn't get enough credit. I think people probably give the Munster Championship too much credit, and the Leinster Championship doesn't probably get enough credit. But I think that it's a very good championship, and I think Galway are going to be lifting the Bob O'Keefe Cup come tomorrow evening.
Okay, and I'm just confirm. Sorry, I don't know obviously all the structure of these tournaments. So the winners of this, am I right in saying, go straight into an All-Ireland semi-final, and the losers then will play one of the winners from the qualifier matches?
So yeah, the loser goes into a quarterfinal. There's 6 teams, and there's 4 teams in the quarterfinals and 2 into the semis, so 2 quarterfinals and then 2 semis. But I suppose Galway, if they win this match, will be in a semi. But I don't know, is it often better to get a quarterfinal under your belt? Like you saw last year, the Leinster and Munster winners both lost their semi-final. Wexford lost to Tipperary, and then Limerick lost to Kilkenny, and then the year before that, Cork had won Munster, they lost to Limerick, and Galway won Leinster, and they very, very nearly lost to Clare. They only won after a replay by a point. So there was so I don't know necessarily if it's the best thing in the world to be going straight to a semi either, but I suppose having said that, Galway or Kilkenny will both take being in that position tomorrow evening in an All-Ireland semi-final as Leinster champions.
I think just on that point about the the team that loses and goes straight into the semi-final. I think in this year, I don't think it'll have as big an impact because everything's so tight. The timescales. I know in previous years there's been like maybe 5-6 weeks or whatever between winning your provincial title and getting a semi-final, and a lot of teams, like whenever you're in the midst, you don't want to play every week, but you want to keep playing regularly. So it'll be interesting, obviously, to see if it makes any difference this year with the tighter schedule. So the other provincial final, another big one, Sunday 4:00, Limerick against Waterford. Just from my kind of casual knowledge of watching the matches, I just have a feel. I just look at this and just think it's like I'm not even really giving Waterford a chance, which I probably is wrong. And I know that Waterford have had some great teams over the years, but just looking at this fixture, everything just tells me Limerick's going to win it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, Gerry. I've been thinking about this game a lot during the week. I just think there's an awful lot of factors I just shared to the viewers now. The first one is that this is not a do-or-die game, Gerry. I think that Liam Cahill and Waterford would be absolutely delighted to be in an All-Ireland quarter-final at the start of the year. They would have been delighted. I think that John Kiley, I think Limerick, if they didn't win the Munster, I don't think will be the end of the world. And the only reason I don't think Limerick mightn't be as pushed in Munster, because this Limerick team, I've done nothing to suggest that, but the only one factor I'm going to give you, Gerry, there's two factors, I suppose. In the Munster round robin last year against Tip, if Limerick lost that game, they could easily have been out with the Munster Championship. Now, they were guaranteed to be in the top three, so they were guaranteed to be going to the All-Ireland preliminary quarter-final regardless, right? But they rested a few lads against Tip and lost that game. Now, as results turned out, they still got to the final. But the year before that, in the last group game, when the same scenario happened, Clare bet Limerick by 11 points. So there's been 2 years in a row when Limerick maybe haven't been as gung-ho for a Munster. But I think, though, Limerick have installed a mentality in themselves where they want to win every competition on the other hand. So, I suppose they won the league in 2019 and 2020. They won the Munster Championship in 2019. They won the All-Ireland in 2018, and they're after winning they have a great chance of winning the Munster again this year. So I think Limerick, on one hand, they're a bit like Dublin in the football, or kind of used to be in the hurling. They seem to want to win everything. But on the other hand, maybe rested those players last year, maybe mightn't have suggested that. But to be honest with you, I just think that on paper, Waterford, if you just look at it in 2017 and 2016, if Waterford played Limerick in 2015, probably they would have been unbackable favourites to win the match. Waterford would have been there would have been no probably question Limerick winning. But now they're probably the other way around. People are thinking there's no question of Waterford winning. And I suppose in 2017, Waterford would have been seeing themselves as miles ahead of Limerick. And then Limerick had just so much. They had a very, very good under-21 team in 2017. And the next year, all those lads just seemed to appear on the senior team and really strengthened them. And they went and won an All-Ireland. So they kind of came, the first real year they had as a top team, Limerick, they won the All-Ireland kind of. And it was a real confidence boost for those lads. But just going back on that, I just think that Limerick, I don't know, I just think Limerick and Waterford, on paper, Waterford are very similar to maybe what Kilkenny were like last year, where they're really, like Liam Cahill as a manager, he's a bit like Brian Cody. I think Richie Power was quoted as saying that apart from Cody, Cahill was the best manager he had in his career. So I just think that he'll install a work ethic in the Waterford team, and they'll play to have a go at Limerick, so they will. And I think Waterford will set themselves up with a very, very good chance of winning this game. Now, I don't think Waterford will win this game, Gerry, but I wouldn't say it would be an absolute major surprise if Waterford were to win this game, to be honest with you. I just think the fact it's not do or die as well might mean that Waterford might have more of a chance as well. But I do think personally at this stage, Gerry, I think Limerick are definitely the favourites to win the All-Ireland in my eyes. I think that they're definitely been the best team so far. They had a very good win against Tip. So if I was going to call it, Gerry, I'd say if Limerick perform and play their A game, I think they'll win this game. I think they'll win by a bit to spare as well. But I just think Waterford, even if Waterford do lose this game, no matter what the margin, they definitely have a chance in the Ireland quarter-final regardless. And I think that if Limerick get to a semi-final, what hasn't really been said is that Limerick, now this is where I don't think, I'd need a bit of a fact check, but I'm only presuming on past precedent. Limerick have already played Tipperary, Gerry, right? So I don't think then that they could meet Tipperary again until an All-Ireland final. I don't think so. I think if Tipperary win their two qualifiers, or the All-Ireland qualifier this weekend and the All-Ireland quarter-final, I think they'll end up playing a Leinster winner even, so Galway or Kilkenny. So I think now that and I suppose if that would indicate that that would really leave Limerick probably on an easier side of the draw, maybe because Tipperary they're Ireland champions. So I'm going to go with Limerick to win this game, and I do think Waterford have a chance, definitely have a chance to win this match, but definitely have a great chance to win the quarter final and being a force in the championship.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously those two games, win or lose, you will get another chance. Whereas in the other two, the McCarthy hurling matches, the same doesn't apply, where it's win or go home. And the first one, obviously, Clare and Wexford, the name just straight away, it's just Davy Fitz just comes, that's what the media is going to be talking about. But on the field, where do you see this game being won and lost?
Well, I suppose, Gerry, the media, the whole thing has been the Davy and Lohan thing. Brian Lohan is managing Clare, and his two brothers they were so close, and they've had obviously that such public fallouts over the years, and this has really been the name of the game, I suppose. But I think that relates back to a Fitzgibbon Cup tie the colleges hurling between University of Limerick and Limerick Institute of Technology in 2014. There was a quarter, and I suppose they had the relationship has been broken since then. So it's a shame to see two of Clare's best ever hurlers in such at war with each other. But I think that's kind of, I don't know, I just think that, Gerry, if you look at this match, when the draw was made on Monday morning, if you ask Wexford who did they want to draw, purely in paper, but I'd say they would have taken Clare. And I say if you ask Clare, they would have taken Wexford. But I definitely do not think Davy Fitz would like to be managing against Clare this weekend. And I don't think Lohan is going to be too fond of this whole thing either. They've been building up to the Davy Derby. So I just think, Gerry, that this game actually promises an awful lot as a game. These could be famous last words, but I don't think we're seeing a team here who's going to be All-Ireland contenders. I think these two teams, I don't think they're going to be real All-Ireland contenders. I think that Clare, they really struggled against Laois last week, and Laois are not bad, but David McInerney got his red card. He had a hearing last night to try and get it rescinded. The hearing didn't, the red card was upheld, so he's not available for selection at the weekend. So I think McInerney's a big loss. We mentioned on the show before, Clare missing an awful lot of lads this year. Gerlach Nan, in his column in the Irish Daily Star, reckons that they're going to be heading for the Joe McDonagh Cup, and that the structures really are not going well in Clare at the moment. Underage, the recent record has been quite poor. So there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of optimism around Clare at the moment. And then if you look at Wexford, I'd say if Clare had everyone fit and Wexford had everyone fit, like the 2018 All-Ireland quarter-final, Clare won fairly comfortably. I think Clare, with everyone playing, are a better team than Wexford. But I think Wexford, now with those lads missing for Clare, probably have slightly more of an advantage over their Munster counterparts. So I'm going to go with Wexford here, Gerry. I think that just about Davy and Brendan Bulgers and with him from Clare, those lads will know the Clare team inside. Now, whether that will make much of a difference, I don't know. But I just think Wexford, they will have a bit of a bounce back from the Galway game in them. I think Clare probably, I think this is probably a 50-50 game. But if I was asked to call it, I'd probably just go for Wexford, Gerry.
Okay. And the other game, Saturday 4:00, it looks like a great game on paper. Cork, we've seen they've been sort of Jekyll and Hyde, like they were terrible, and then they turned up against Dublin. And Tipperary, obviously they lost to Limerick, but Limerick did on the day were superb. From my viewpoint, I would probably think that Tipperary's consistency and just a general higher level would probably see them through. But what do you make of it, Cork and Tip?
I'd be inclined to agree with you, Gerry. I just think Tip might have a bit more of a better team, but I think Cork, that we saw kind of the real Cork against Dublin last week. We didn't really see the real Cork against Waterford, and probably throughout the league. I suppose the only game you could probably argue they played well in the league was against Tip when they won in, I think it was in round 2. So I think that Cork and Tip is going to be, I think this is definitely the game to look forward to in the hurling this weekend. Out of all the 4 games, I think this is by this and then Clare and Wexford. I keep mentioning, I'm very, very much traditionalist with the knockout side. I just think this is do or die now. There's no second chances. And I just think if you just back up my knockout point, Gerry, you saw it was 2 different Corks, the one against Waterford and the one against Dublin. I just don't know if it was the whole do or die thing. Did they switch it on? And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same with Tip. I just think that Tip, whatever she's been manager or any manager, they've always been a much better team when their back is to the wall and they have to win, And I think this is definitely one of those games where they have to win. And I don't think they're going to relinquish their All-Ireland title too soft, to be honest with you. I think that there's they're being written off in some quarters. They're saying it's an old team, and people are kind of forgetting that they've won 2 All-Ireland under-20s and 21s in a row. So I just don't really think that, like, kind of, Tip seem to be a really young team, while Cork seem to be a really young team, while Tip seem to be an age now. While Tip have beaten Cork in the last 2 under-20 finals, that kind of way. So in the first year in 2018 was against the Head in under-21. 2020 or 19, even last year's under-20 final, Tip definitely deserved to win it. So I think the Tip are probably a better team than Cork, but I think Kieran Kingston in Cork is a very good coach, and I think they need to keep Kingston long term. I think Cork are at the stage now where I think 16 of their players are under the age of 24 or something along those lines. So they have a young team, they have good young talent. Now they're probably relying on Patrick Horgan an awful lot, who's not getting any younger. But I think Cork definitely are a team. I know what we keep saying is Cork have to start taking their chance. You take any chance you get to win, but Cork are a team for the future, definitely. And as our Tip, but I just think All-Ireland winners Tip, there'll be a big show on them this weekend. I just think that they'll have too much for Cork, Gerry, to be honest.
Okay. And so moving, I know we sort of touched on these on Monday, but we'll just sort of go over just to briefly the other competitions. So the Joe McDonagh Cup is this weekend. Antrim plays Kerry in it. I know it kind of just the way results have gone so far. This is kind of looking like the winners of this will probably be in the final. The losers will, still essentially have a chance, but it'll be more dependent on other results and stuff. But Corrigan Park, I believe it's at in Belfast this weekend. So who do you fancy for that one?
Yeah, just going back on the permutations there, Gerry, I've kind of been working out in my head. I think that if Kerry win, they're definitely in a final. So there's a guarantee. Kerry have 2 games left against Carlow and against Antrim this weekend. And if they win one of those games, they're in a final. There's no beating around the bush. But Antrim are a bit different. Antrim have 2 games left against Kerry and against Meath in the last round. Now, if Antrim lose this weekend and Carlow beat Kerry, then Antrim will be out with the championship regardless of what happens against Meath. Now, that actually is not an improbable scenario results, Gerry, because if Antrim lose this weekend, Carlow will go to Kerry in the last game, but Kerry will already be through. So you'd imagine that with Carlow having much more to play for, they will be Kerry in the last round. So I think this is very, very much a do-or-die game for Darren Gleeson's side this weekend. I think Antrim have to win this game. I think Kerry, deep down, this will never be said. Now, they really will want to win this weekend. They'll be going all gung-ho to win this weekend because Antrim have beaten them twice this year. But if they do lose this weekend, I think that they really fancy chances of beating Carlow at home in the last round. And also they still need Carlow to win every other match as well, to beat Westmeath as well. But I keep saying, Gerry, now, this has gone down to a 3-team championship. It's between Antrim, Kerry and Carlow. And I just think that Carlow have 2 games left and they have to win both of them. They have to beat Kerry away and they have to beat Westmeath away. Well, they definitely have to beat Westmeath and they more than likely have to beat Kerry Barron to get lucky. So they have 2. Carlow have 1 chance to beat Kerry. Kerry have 2 games. They have to win one of them. And Antrim have 2 games and they have to win both of them. Or at least 1 draw and 1 win. So I think Antrim, this weekend on home soil, Corrigan Park will suit them. They went down to Carlow, didn't play well, but they got the point and they'll really be happy with that draw. I think Darren Gleeson would absolutely love to win this weekend. If they win this weekend, they'll really fancy chances of beating Meath in the last round and getting to a final. So I'm going to go with Antrim to edge it this week, Gerry, just about. But I think that I'm going to say Antrim to win this weekend, and I think both these sides are going to meet again in the final in Croke Park.
Okay, and just obviously with the Kerry footballers being out, is there any dual players there that might come across?
No,
I've seen there was a few rumors.
I don't think so, Gerry. I think that, to be fair to these teams, the dual player hasn't worked in recent years because I don't think managers don't seem to want it. And Kerry, I don't think there's no way that the football management would ever be playing ball with that stuff, to be honest with you. I just don't think it's a done thing. But I think it's good that Kerry, they're at a stage now where they've had Fintan O'Connor for 4 years now, and I think that they'll have their set panel of players established. And I think long term, I've kind of changed my opinion on this because people don't seem to want to work with dual players anymore. I think long term it's better for the core. If you have a good core panel of players like Kerry do, I think it's better not to be adding lads who haven't trained all year the week before a game, to be honest with you, Gerry. Do you know that kind of way? Like you saw Derry Hurlers even probably could have done so last weekend and they might have done better. But I think long term, you need to decide whether you want to be a footballer or a hurler in these counties. You know that kind of way if the counties are going to progress. So no, I don't think that's going to be a factor this weekend, unfortunately. I think I don't think you might know more. I don't think it's going to be a factor for Antrim either this weekend, is it?
No, I thought so. No. Okay, so Christy Ring Cup then down in Offaly and Kildare and Roscommon. I know we've been pretty consistent in saying that we think this is Offaly's to lose. So they've got down this weekend. Do you see any surprises?
I just think Jerry Down have been drawn a bit of a short straw here with the draw, because Down have had a great year and they've done nothing wrong, and they've really ran into a draw which isn't going to do any favour. I think Offaly are going to be the best team in the competition. If they win this game, they'll be back up in the Joe McDonagh now. So while if they were to lose a Christy Ring final, it would be a disaster. Realistically, getting to back to Joe McDonagh hurling is all that really matters really for Offaly at this stage. So this is really an All-Ireland final for Offaly. They have to win this game. It's a promotion playoff. If they win this, anything that really happens in the final is a bonus. And I think Offaly are going to win this game. No, I don't think Down can win this game. I think Ronan Sheehan is a very good coach. He's doing good work in Down. He's a very proud Down hurling man. There's an awful lot. Down are one of those counties, Jerry, that if we often talk about Ulster hurling even, and I often talk to loads of people, but there's pockets up in Antrim, your part of the world, where hurling is an absolute religion. It's a dominant game. The only other pocket, not pockets, it's a big area in your part of the world, even Jerry. But the only other massive area like that in Ulster where I can think of is around the Irish Peninsula and Down, where you have Portaferry and Ballycran and those teams. Like so I just But who's the other one, Jerry?
Yeah, Ballygalder.
Yeah, that Ballygalder. That's the third one I couldn't think of there. But those teams around there, Down is an absolute hurling fortress up for hurling is a religion in those parts, and hurling there is taken every bit as serious as it is in Kilkenny or Limerick or Cork or Tipperary or any county. I think Down, there are other parts of Ulster, there's little pockets where hurling is an absolute is the be all and end all. But I think Antrim and Down are two places. But it's a large part of Antrim and maybe a small-ish area Down, big geographically, maybe not big population-wise. But I think that Offaly are going to take them this weekend, Jerry. But I think the most important thing for Down is that there's no team going down from the Joe McDonagh Cup this year. So I think Down in the next few years have to be aiming to get back up. I think Down hurling has gone back an absolute sight, and it's sad enough to see, to be honest, Jerry. But I think Offaly are going to win this weekend. And just the other game then, Kildare and Roscommon, this is going to be an interesting one. Now, Kildare hurlers are a team, I've kind of been consistent to this view that I think Kildare are putting structures in place where they really can improve as a hurling county and take the step to the next level. And I think that they've improved in every way, Jerry, apart from maybe at senior inter-county level. And I think this weekend is a chance for them to take that next step to being a Joe McDonagh Cup team. I think Roscommon bet them last year. It was a big surprise. Kildare had bet them fairly comfortably the year before. Roscommon are one of those counties where there's a core hurling people who take the game very seriously. There's a few clubs where hurling is really a big game, like Four Roads in that league and Porrick Pierce's, but to name a few. But I think Kildare have a bit more better underage structure. It's more, maybe they've had more of an advantage maybe with the population and maybe the game growing strong. I think a lot of people moved from Tipperary and Galway and the west of Ireland to places like Kildare, suburbs of Dublin, and they kind of helped the clubs and grew the clubs in those areas. So I think that work in Kildare is going to start maybe paying off. I don't think they're going to win a Christy Ring Cup this year, but I do think they're going to beat Roscommon this weekend. So I'm going to go for a Kildare win. And I think that Kildare going to the Joe McDonagh Cup along with Offaly, well, Offaly not so much, but Kildare definitely going to a Joe McDonagh Cup will mark a huge step forward for the county.
Okay. And the last competition in the hurling this weekend then is the Nicky Rackard. We've got Mayo versus Leitrim and Donegal versus Tyrone. So you've got the two Connacht teams that are left together and the two Ulster teams that are left together. So any thoughts on these?
Well, I haven't seen much Nicky Rackard, to be honest, Jerry, but just talking to people who would have seen the two games, Mayo are overwhelming favourites to beat Leitrim, so that should be Mayo should be in the final, barring a major surprise. And I'm really looking forward to the Donegal Tyrone. You know, I think that from a neutral perspective, that will be the game, one of the games of the weekend in the hurling. I think that Tyrone, I'd like to see Tyrone win, Jerry. I think they put in an awful lot of work, a bit similar to Kildare and hurling in recent years. I think they won a Nicky Rackard in 2014 and didn't really go anywhere for them after that, you know. But this is a chance for Tyrone maybe to show what they're worth, and it'd be great for the hurlers to get back into a final in Croke Park. So I think Donegal are slight favourites. Donegal are probably a bit more experienced than Tyrone, but I think Donegal might take them. But I think over the next few years, Jerry, Tyrone a bit like Kildare getting up to Joe McDonagh. Tyrone would be a huge step for them if they could get into a Christy ring consecutively. Even now, I don't want to keep saying the same point every time of the show, but the coverage and everything, that's not up for debate. How poor it is, that kind of way. The media hasn't been saturated with coverage of these games. Like, I think often, Gerry, that the onus probably is on local media to provide coverage if the nationals aren't going to. And now I haven't been reading the local papers in those 4 counties, to be honest. I'm sure there is a lot of coverage, but it doesn't really draw people's attention. If you look at those 4 counties playing this weekend, Gerry, Donegal, Tyrone, Mayo and Leitrim are absolutely 4 football mad counties, really. There's none of those counties hurling is anywhere near being a dominant game. There might be 1 club in the county or 2 clubs where hurling is a dominant game, but no, they're really football counties. But I think if you said it's going to be Mayo and Tyrone or Mayo and Donegal in a final in Croke Park this year, we might be thought it might be an Ireland football final. But if probably a Nicky Rackard hurling final would mean as much to those players on display. So I'm going to say Mayo to win, and I'm going to just edge for Donegal in the other game. And then I suppose the last game before we move on to football is the Laurie Maher Cup. I think it has been moved, Gerry.
It has been moved, yeah. So it's not this weekend. It's I think it is it's maybe 2 weeks' time at Croke Park. So we'll cover that one in a few weeks' time. So yeah, there's no Laurie Maher matches this weekend. So yeah, that's everything we have then for the hurling. So that there's the 9 games, and certainly a lot of very important matches with a lot riding on them. So we'll look forward to that, and obviously thanks again to Conor, for joining us with all his knowledge and keeping us right and what's to be expected and what we might be able to look forward to this weekend. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back later with the football. There's only 5 matches in it, but they're all obviously the way the football championship is. They're all win or go home. So we'll look forward to that, and we'll be back with you later. So thank you for watching, and talk soon.